Hi, my name is Sage, and this week, as you can tell from the title, everything went wrong. So the original plan was to make a popsicle stick lawn chair. You know, like beachy chair, that type of vibe. A Grim Reaper with some sunglasses who was gonna sit on that chair with a glass in hand and an umbrella. Standing, of course. But that didn't happen. Art is about the journey and not the destination, and we're gonna take a lot of side paths. So first things first, I'm gonna need some popsicle sticks. I then lay these popsicle sticks out all nice and wonderful, right? Everything looks like it's going great. I'm gonna glue another popsicle stick up top of these ones. Next, I cut the bottom of them off. Everything's looking great, a little crooked, but whatever. I then start to make the seat part by hot gluing more popsicle sticks together to make the seat, you know what I'm saying? So now that the seat is built, I then come across my issue, which is the legs. In my mind, I'm thinking, oh hey, like I can glue the top horizontal popsicle stick to the vertical one that I'm putting right beside it, right? Because that makes sense. And turns out that was a very bad idea, because the way that it was angled, it just wasn't grabbing onto it, as you could tell, and it was bad. So then I make another one, but with smaller popsicle sticks, because I thought that was my issue, that the back ones were just a bit too thick, and I needed the horizontal one to really horizontal and come out on the edges. So I then cut the bottoms off. Again, they're crooked, but whatever, it's fine, you know? So then I go back on working on the seat, right? And nothing could possibly go wrong until my brain has to do some gymnastics, because I can't figure it out. I want it to lay back, but my brain isn't braining right, and I'm like, how do I do this? So then I start all over for a third time, but this time I want to make the legs straight, because I've accepted my defeat at this point, that my brain can't make it lay back for some reason. It doesn't work like that. So I do some trimming on the popsicle sticks at the bottom and also across the horizontal one. And then I become very indecisive, because the horizontal one's kind of crooked already, and it's just not looking the way that I want it to look in my brain, which sounds crazy, but it's true. So now I'm left with 3 kind of made chairs, except all of them have no legs. And then I decide, you know what? Enough's enough with the popsicle sticks. It's time to go back to what I know, and that is clay. So naturally, I have to break out the tin foil and start folding as I am making the chair again. This is the 4th time I'm trying to make this chair, except this time I'm not making a lawn chair. As you can tell by the title, I am making a floaty chair. I just don't know it at this point yet. All that's happening in my mind is I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I could give him like a tombstone chair, you know, scary. And then I'm like, you know what? I still want to have summer vibes. And I start to see the vision of a floaty chair. And since floaty chairs are thick, obviously I had to go in with even more tin foil and just make it thicker and thicker until finally it looks like this. And so now it's time to put some clay on it. I know it kind of looks like a toilet, but in my mind, it has potential, and that is what I am looking for at this point. So now it's time to build the Grim Reaper. And I do that by smushing some tin foil up top of itself to kind of just make a body form, because he's the Grim Reaper, so he's a flowy little guy, you know? So it doesn't have to be perfect. But for the arms, I end up twisting some tin foil in on itself and then wrapping some tin foil around the arms as I put it on the back, so then they stick out and they also stay. Because I don't want to use any hot glue or anything, because this is going in the oven, and obviously hot glue in the oven isn't the best idea in the world. And so now that he's looking semi-human, it is now time to cover him in clay too. So now that the bases are all made and good to go, it is now time to get out the rolling pin, as I'm going to be making his hood. And for his hood, I just squish it around a little bit, and I also rip some pieces off, because obviously the Grim Reaper is flowy, even though he's on a floaty. And I also use my ball stylus and blend everything out. So next I get another ball stylus and start carving out his eyes, before then breaking out the pointy stylus and start carving out his nose. I then roll some little logs, as these are going to go on his face to make a very simple form skull at the bottom for his teeth. Next I use the pointy stylus and I do some carving and some blending just to make them look like they all should be connected to the face, before then taking the ball stylus and then also doing some carving and some blending just all over to make his face look, well, just more Grim Reaper-y, but also kind as well. I also give him a little bit more of a nose job by putting some more clay up top of it just so it protrudes. Next I break out the rolling pin yet again and flatten some more clay, as I am working on building up his cloak. And his cloak, obviously I want it to be more of a flattened subject, but also flowy, but also kind of ripped at the edges. So by doing this I can just rip the flattened clay apart, as this will give me the rough edges, and that's what I'm looking for because I want his cloak to still be kind of scary but also fun. And once I rip all the flattened clay apart, I then use my ball stylus and just kind of blend everything together to make it look like it's one giant cloak rather than just a bunch of ripped pieces of clay. Next I begin to work on his shoes, and I wasn't too sure what to give him for shoes because I was thinking, what if I gave him sandals? But I ended up just giving him boots instead, but you don't really see them anyway, so you just see the bottom of them. So I decided to give him like a heel, but not a pointed one, just like a regular flat one, because he is in the water after all. And I also gave him some squigglies on the bottom of his shoes because obviously he gotta have some treads. Next I make the cape on his arms longer, before then deciding I hated that idea. But then I add them back yet again, and then I'm like, you know what, these look good. But now this is where the paths start going everywhere. Everything starts to just take on a different life, you know? And so I begin my journey of making the hands, you know? And for my first journey, I decide I'm gonna give him like a fist because it's nice and simple and I can't really mess that up, right? Wrong! I decided I hated the fist, but I loved the second hand that I made off screen, which was a finger gun, because that just has vibes to it, you know? So I take off the fist and then I add some more clay before I begin to embark on my journey of making the second finger gun. And I start by making the thumb, before then making the protruding finger, as this will be the base, and then if you know me, I get very confused over my rights and lefts. And this is me trying to figure that out, because which way are the fingers supposed to be going? You know what I'm saying? Because last time I tried to make finger guns, I made two of the same hand. And so this is me figuring out that the fingers should be pointing towards him, but then in my mind, I'm like, oh my god, he just has 3 fingers, I need to give him an extra one, not realizing that I already made the pointed one on top. So now I just gave him an extra finger for no reason, but I realized it before it was too late, so everything's fine. Everything's good. I just can't count and I confuse myself. So then I start carving the knuckles, and I also do some indents so it kind of looks like bones, because obviously he doesn't have any flesh because he's the Grim Reaper, he's just too cool. And once that's all done, I then realize once I put that hand on, the other hand, obviously I didn't make any indents or anything yet because that's just not what I did, but I realized one hand is way bigger than the other, and the one that's bigger is the one that I just made in front of you. So now the one that I made off screen is too small, so I have to fix that. So with the power of editing, wha-bam, it is now all fixed and it's bigger. So now that the hand journey is concluded, I then go back to working on the cloak, but then I get completely distracted and started to work on the pool floatie instead because it's looking a little lumpy and I want to fix that. And one thing that I've learned about clay is that if it's lumpy, it needs more. So I end up adding more and more off screen, and it's just a repetitive process. But now it's all nice and smooth. I then jump back to the cloak and use my ball stylus and just kind of roll it everywhere because I want it to be somewhat textured but also smooth at the same time. But then I decide it's now time to make the umbrella holder, and to do that I squish up some clay and I make it into a log shape before then putting it on the back of the floatie. Next I use the ball stylus and I blend it to the floatie itself so then it sticks, and then I take some wire and poke it through so then the wire will fit once it's all nice and baked. And speaking of baking, he is now all good to go. So then I put him in the oven, and this is what he looks like when he comes out. I put the entire thing in there for an hour, and only one thing really fell off, which is part of his sleeve, and honestly, I think that's pretty great. So then I break out the Gorilla Glue and get gluing. So now that it's nice and sturdy, I now get to paint, and I begin by painting the pool floaty pink because obviously this Grim Reaper has vibes, and those vibes are summer. And this is just the first layer of pink. I do end up going over it a couple times, but that's mostly just because I get black all over it because obviously his cloak is black and I am a messy painter. And speaking of black, I go in with the black and just start painting his cloak all over. As you can see, also I got pink all over his cloak as well. You know, it's just part of the process to get paint everywhere, as you can tell by my table. And with the power of editing, whoop bam, his cloak is painted. Ooh, and this is just the first coat again because I am just messy. So I do some detailing after, but right now I am painting his bones. Ooh, I know that the clay was already pale to begin with, and the white paint just, it takes a few layers up top of this clay. I don't know why, to make it look super white, but I do end up doing a couple of layers on all of the bones. And also when I paint his face, I didn't realize my hand was so close to the camera and it kept going blurry, so that was my bad. But now that the first layers on all of the colors are painted, I now am gonna let him dry and begin the umbrella process. And that process includes cutting out a square piece of fabric. I then fold this square piece, well, semi-square, as you can tell I don't measure, but I fold it hot dog style before then folding it hamburger style, and then making that into a triangle, and then cutting it at the bottom so it's a circular cut. So then when I unfold it, it looks like this. It looks like an umbrella shape. Ooh, I know it's not perfect, but you know what? That's just part of the process. I don't measure, and that's the reason why, but if you measured, it would probably look great. Next, I cut a slit on one of the folds as I'm going to fold this over and use Gorilla Glue to glue it so it really has that pointed top. After that, I take some popsicle sticks and use Gorilla Glue and put them all on the folds. And since I was one toothpick short, I end up cutting up a popsicle stick and using the sliver I cut from that instead, because of course I'm one toothpick short, because why not? And this is what the umbrella looks like so far. But now I'm going to move on to putting the wire into the pool floaty holder before then cutting it where I think would be a good measurement, because again, I don't do math. I'm just eyeballing everything. I then put the umbrella part on top, and you know what? It's looking a little sad. So I decided I'm gonna give it some bones, and by bones, I mean construction paper. And so I do the exact same thing as I did with the fabric. I cut out a square piece, and you're probably thinking to yourself, what could possibly go wrong here? Absolutely everything. As you can see, I think I'm folding and cutting everything the exact same that I did before, but then it turns out like this. What is this? So now it's back to the drawing board. And by drawing board, I mean I'm back to cutting construction paper all over again. So I fold it hot dog style, and then hamburger style, and then triangle, before then cutting a circular edge at the bottom. And this time, I did it correctly. I still don't know what I did wrong the first time I did this. I'm just confused. But I don't question anything. Instead, I slice a fold on the umbrella, then fold that over after gluing it down, and I use Elmer's glue because I have a big tub of it, because why don't I? Next, I use Gorilla Glue and glue the fabric to the construction paper so it's sturdier, before then taking the hot glue and adhering the wire to the construction paper. So now he has an umbrella. And now for the final step, to paint this wooden slab that I got from the dollar store blue, so now he can truly float along on his journeys. So now that the base is done and he's done, everything is now done. So I'd like to say thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking this art journey with me. And now it's time for the glamour shots.